Hello and welcome to The New Reality. I'm Donna Friesen. The world didn't know what to expect from the novel coronavirus when it first emerged more than a year ago. Now we don't know what to expect from its much more transmissible variants. The virus is constantly a step ahead. The variants, which have rapidly evolved, are evidence of that. We do have vaccines now, which is a remarkable achievement, but the variants are infecting people faster than the vaccines can be rolled out. And there's evidence emerging people who have recovered from COVID-19 can possibly be reinfected with the variants, which means though case numbers are on the decline in Canada right now, it could be the calm before the storm. Even where the roads run out, the race is on. Here, deep in the Amazon rainforest of Brazil, these nurses are delivering precious COVID-19 vaccine, bringing hope in a second deadly wave of the pandemic to a region still haunted by the first. Thank you, says this woman, one of the first to be vaccinated here. Her relief is real. Few places have been hit as hard as the state of Amazonas. A new, highly contagious variant is driving another massive surge in cases here. There are alarming signs it could evade the immunity of those who have already recovered from COVID-19. And it's one of several variants of concern that could change the course of the pandemic everywhere. Downriver, in the capital city of Manaus, no one thought the virus could strike like this again. Hospital corridors teem with COVID patients. Too few beds, not enough staff. Relatives forced to find scarce oxygen tanks. There are never enough. One hospital ran out entirely. Patients began to suffocate and die. Thalita Rocha's mother-in-law was one of them. There's no more oxygen in the entire health unit, she says. So many people are dying. Hospitals are now turning patients away, sent home to be cared for by family. Others left on their own. Without oxygen, they die where they lay. What defies belief is the intensity and ferocious speed of the spread, a variant with a vengeance. It was thought the devastating first wave 8 months ago, which is believed to have infected the majority of people here, should have produced herd immunity. Yet this sudden surge in sickness is even worse. And these mutations are spreading across the globe.
The discovery of a second major variant.
About the new variant of COVID-19.
That the coronavirus is evolving is not unexpected.
There are thousands of variants of the virus out there in the world. So the question becomes, what makes a particular variant a variant of concern?
And what allowed them to evolve so rapidly? The first genetic sequence of the novel coronavirus came from a sample taken from a worker in the seafood market in Wuhan, China. That seed has grown, branching out into a family tree. The more people the virus infects, the more it replicates. Over time, genetic changes occur, creating new branches known as variants. Most variants are of little concern, but 3 have emerged with advantages, allowing them to thrive and outrun others. They were first detected in the UK, South Africa, and Brazil, and what makes them extraordinary are the number of mutations they've acquired at once. And all 3 possess the N501Y mutation. It affects the all-important spike protein, the key that opens the way into healthy human cells, making these variants up to 50% more contagious.
Most patients have no idea how they got the virus, and that's a general trend.
Back in Canada, at Toronto's Humber River Hospital, COVID cases in the ICU are slowly receding, but Dr. Jamie Spiegelman is wary.
Some patients have really minimal or no symptoms, and some patients are so sick that they die within a couple of hours of coming to hospital, no matter what we do for them.
he knows the threat from variants is looming.
It's way more transmissible and contagious, which is concerning because we know the original virus was very contagious to start off with.
A few floors down, the hospital lab is hunting for variants. Staff are working around the clock, processing hundreds of COVID PCR tests each day.
It is very detailed, very detail-oriented. If you miss something, if someone isn't up to date, things will not get done.
Their target, a missing gene that could be a red flag for the UK variant.
Any sample that tests negative for the S gene and positive for the other two, we forward to provincial lab for sequencing of the UK strain.
It is critical work, the first step in a sophisticated genomic surveillance system. All suspicious samples are sent on to another lab in the Canadian COVID-19 Genomics Network, a nationwide alliance of government and university labs.
Science that is serving the community.
Dr. Catalina Lopez Correa is executive director.
I think we're now a bit on a race between the vaccine and the virus.
Genomic sequencing, mapping the entire genetic code of the virus, is the only way to find the variants of concern. About 5% of positive COVID tests in Canada are being sequenced. So far, they've detected cases of all three highly contagious variants in Canada. Is that enough to get a sense of how prevalent the variants are in the population?
This is the $1 million question. We have been working with modelers, mathematicians, statisticians to get to the right number. We need to do more. It will be important to do more sequencing to really get a detailed information on what's happening with this virus. And not just in Canada. The virus is fast in learning how to trick our system. We need to be fast in learning how is the virus moving and how is the virus evolving.
There is no time to waste. Ontario is now screening all positive COVID tests for variants. In Barrie, Ontario, an outbreak raced through this long-term care home. All 129 residents were infected and 70 have died. The majority of the infections are believed to be the UK variant. Dr. Terry Snuch is with UBC's Michael Smith Laboratories.
The more people that are infected, the more people that are going to be hospitalized, and unfortunately, the more people that will then die.
The virus thrives when we move around. It needs human hosts to spread and mutate. Yet there is no consensus among countries about how to restrict travel.
We're looking at really every measure that's been implemented by every country.
Professor Kelly Lee at BC's Simon Fraser University is part of an international group analyzing travel restrictions. How do you think the conversation, the thinking, the strategy about travel restrictions has evolved from the beginning to where we are now?
So at the beginning, way back in January, February, the received wisdom really was that travel-related restrictions don't work. And WHO put out the recommendation that countries should not adopt such measures. As this pandemic has unfolded, we've seen that actually there are some situations where actually it can work.
Life in Australia and New Zealand is largely back to normal thanks to tight border controls and strict lockdowns when even a single case emerges. Most of Canada opted to flatten the curve, aiming to suppress, not eliminate the virus. It's led to thousands of deaths and rounds of restrictions. Now, with the rise of the variants, there are calls for a new approach.
The Canadian Shield strategy is an effort to start thinking a bit more strategically about where we're going, what's the end game.
Carolyn Colane is an infectious diseases modeler at Simon Fraser University.
It would be to get cases low soon, as soon as we can, and then to do the shield. So that means support reductions in transmission by doing innovative things in rapid testing, by taking border measures to stop introductions. We want to be reopening. We want to be getting people back to what they need, getting back to a social life.
Professor Lee believes Canada's latest restrictions, including stopping flights to the Caribbean and Mexico, are half measures.
The new variants, what we know about them is they're circulating globally. They're not where you think they are, and they're moving around, much faster than we can actually detect them.
She wants tighter controls, including on interprovincial travel.
Those new variants didn't swim across the country. They didn't walk across the country. They moved with people. And so we have to really recognize that that's one of the causes. And I think these new variants are actually almost a new outbreak. We're like almost back to January 2020 again.
The virus is evolving in real time, and there is much uncertainty about the impact on vaccines and immunity.
So the virus basically learns how to play with your immune system and start to evolve and transform and create these mutations to escape your immune system. And that's what is really concerning.
In the anguish of Manaus, a father mourns as his 19-year-old daughter is laid to rest. There is a warning for the world here. Even when the worst seems to have passed, this virus can roar back in new, evolving forms.
This is a wake-up call to all of us that we will be dealing as the virus uses its devices to evade pressure, particularly immunological pressure, that we will continue to see the evolution of mutants.
And the nurses are back on the river. In the race to deliver vaccines, we need to buy time by maintaining or tightening public health restrictions. Otherwise, the variants could outrun us. Do you think the virus is still winning at this point?
Well, it's quite an intelligent virus, I will say, and it's really where we're seeing with these three variants. We spent an entire year basically with no variants of concern, and in 3 months we have already 3 variants of concern. That shows that the virus is basically learning and moving.
Coming up on The New Reality.